Big Game, Chapter 13 and 14 by Tim Green. Danny looked away. He furrowed his brow and pretended to be grinding on his test. When he tried to sneak a peek at the teacher, she was still staring unmoved. Danny had that sinking feeling in his gut. He circled B for the next answer and then D for the last answer to throw her off. It seemed like forever before Miss Raitt called, "Time!" She struggled up from her desk without expression. "Please pass your test to the front." Secretly, Danny watched her collecting the tests. When she took the stack from Janey, she paid him no mind, and he thought maybe the whole thing was going to blow over. He felt like that was pretty decent of her to give him a break on the first day, even though she'd given him detention for being late. He understood that. It was like a football coach. Mr. Raitt was making him an example, so everyone knew she was serious. But when it came to something only she and he knew about, well, she let that slide. When she began to lecture them on the importance of reading, Danny felt his eyelids sagging. He opened his notebook and drew up some football plays to make it look like he was with the program. Miss Raitt illustrated charts for them on the board that sketched out plot lines, story arcs, and what she called central characters. But her point was that reading was supposed to be fun. Danny snorted softly at that one. When Miss Raitt turned back to face her class, excitement glowed in her eyes. While we will learn the elements of stories and writing and work to shore up your mechanics, spelling, punctuation, grammar, my focus will be for you to read, and read some more. It should be fun. It should be exciting. It should be life-changing. She looked around like a woman waking from a dream. Danny forgot about his troubles and actually felt bad for her because she was pretty and nice and she had that crutch thing going on. From the middle of the classroom, Pete Goff raised his hand. Pete had also made the team as a 7th grader, not as a starter like Cupcake and Danny, though. He was a second-string offensive tackle. While he didn't have Cupcake's size, Pete was also a farm kid and had all the toughness and strength that went with that. "Yes, Mr. Goff, is it?" "Yes, ma'am." "Ma'am, do you like football?" A small wave of tittering rolled through the classroom. "Why would you ask me that, Mr. Goff?" Pete scratched at the red stubble on his scalp. "Well, you said fun and exciting and life-changing. Sounds like you're talking football. These parts, that's how it goes anyway." Miss Raitt was obviously disappointed that Pete wasn't drinking her Kool-Aid, but she forced a smile. "I understand the attraction to football and all sports, but this is something vastly more important. Reading is the cornerstone of education, and education is how we better ourselves as individuals and a society." She looked around at them to show she was serious, and the bell rang. Miss Raitt raised her voice above the scramble. "There are copies of Bud, Not Buddy on the desk by the door. Take one and read Chapter 1 for tomorrow. There may be a quiz." As the groans subsided, Miss Raitt spoke in a lower but clear voice. "Mr. Owens, I need to see you." "Yes, ma'am." Janey turned toward him and bit her lip. Her eyes filled with panic, maybe for him, but maybe for her too. Janey was always at the top of their class, and trouble was something she avoided like it was a raccoon with rabies. He knew she didn't like when he looked at her answers, but they both knew English killed him, and without her, he'd likely not have made it past 3rd grade. To calm her, Danny held his chin high and gave his head a slight shake to signal that he'd never take her down to. When Janey turned and disappeared into the hall, Danny turned to face the music. Chapter 14. Close that door," his teacher said. "Yes, ma'am." Danny did as told and approached the desk where she now sat with one arm still connected to the crutch. He noticed now a little fuzzy purple koala bear clipped to the aluminum support and wondered where it came from. "I'm sorry, we have to start out this way, but cheating is a very serious thing for me." Her eyes flashed with anger. She held up a hand. "Lying is even worse, so think about what you want to say to me before you say it." Danny smiled nervously and forced a laugh. "Number 50 was just so hard, and I saw Janey's paper, and I did look, but I didn't even use her answer, I swear. You can check." Danny pointed to the stack of tests. Miss Raitt stretched her lips with doubt. Then she breathed in through her nose before letting out in a huff. She reached for the test, riffled through the pile, and removed his and Janey's. She put them down and flipped to the last page. Danny bit back a smile, well pleased with his own cleverness, until she frowned and began working backwards to compare the answers. These are all the same, she said without looking up. The rest of them. Really? Danny craned his neck, wearing a mask of incredible surprise. She snapped the papers down and glared up at him. Very clever. You saw me see you and you changed it. No, ma'am. Danny swapped his smiling face for a look of horror. Miss Ray, why don't you like me? Is this just 'cause I was late? My math teacher kept me in that class and is on the other side of the school. She studied him and curled her lips. You're very charming, Danny, with your eyes. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, but I see through charm. She raised her crutch just off the floor. Outward appearances don't mean as much to me. I'm interested about the inside. Ma'am, Danny sighed. I'm just trying to be polite. I was just being polite, she said, correcting him. Was. Someone for her next class knocked gently on the door and peered through the window. Well, it's your word against mine. I can't prove you cheated. She smiled at him in a way that suggested she won a contest. But I've got a better idea. I'll have you retake the test after school. See you then, Danny.